Now we would like to offer the last chapter of the session. The title is Climate Change Measures, Environmental Cooperation Using Japan's DX Innovation and Promotion of SDGs. This session in the area of waste management, digital technology, and data utilization, and utilizing these and leveraging this information leading to solution, and also initiative for Japan's environmental future city and creating a future environmental model cities and center around on Asia in terms of realizing support by alliance of intercities in offering establishment of net zero society and circular society in foreseeing and deepening understanding of the Japanese technology and what it would offer. We have three presenters for the session. First of all, we would like to invite SCI Ms. Miyata Mayumi, Senior Director, Office of Science, Technology, Innovation, and Digital Transformation, Governance and Peacebuilding Department, JICA. And also Mr. Arima Takanori, Executive Director, Environmental Bureau, City of Kitakyushu. And Mr. Numazaki Masuhiro, Director, Environmental Policy Division, Environmental Department, City of Toyama. And after the presentation, there will be a Q&A session to wrap up this session. So if you have any question, please post your question in the Zoom chat box. And if you be able to share your name and your affiliation, that would be highly appreciated. Those members who are in the venue would like to ask question, please submit your question on the piece of paper and raise your hand, and some of our staff member will go and collect the question. If you don't have the paper to write down your question, the Secretariat Office will be able to accommodate in offering you some paper. So now I'd like to invite Ms. Miyata Mayumi from JICA for your part of the presentation, please. My name is Miyata from JICA. Thank you very much for this very precious opportunity for me to present here today. Please, somebody manage the slide. I am from SCI DX room, and the overall JICA, which I will be describing in the business, we are now as a team transforming DX. And I am at the members of leading this effort, and with the members of environmental agency, and we would like to talk about the program of environmental management and how technology and digital could be utilized towards this end. And the result of this study and research will be presented today. So go on to the next slide, please. And there are 5 topics which I would like to touch upon. The first is DX vision and role, digital transformation, vision, and role. So going on to the next page. So this is the overall presentation. These are the key messages. There are 4 bullet points. One is that utilizing digital technology, and with the utilization of digital technology in the areas of the flow of waste management, it will be able to contribute to the development scenario. And there are a lot of digital solutions already exist in the world. And the second is utilization of data from digital. Effectively, efficiently, the data that could be extracted could be utilized effectively. So we'll be able to roll out the support from point to dimensions and much wider. So we have high possibility to do so. Number 3, in terms of the structure based upon data. So it's a approach towards digital architecture. And last but not least, KPI management is something that I also like to touch upon. So going on to the next slide. So this is about a year ago within JICA. We had the so-called DX vision, and we have publicized this vision. And we had defined and stipulated in the overall climate digital transformation will be pursued going forward, and we are promoting this activity. So on the top, you see the vision. DX vision. So digital, each one of us will be able to realize happiness on an individual basis. And there are three pillars in terms of changing business, changing people, and changing organization. So these three pillars. And against that, respectively, there are three activities associated with them. So there are 9 activities altogether. The area I'm in charge of is a top layer, number 1, number 2, number 3. But today I would like to talk about digital technology and utilization of data, circle number 1, and also creation, a partnership with a private company. I also would like to touch upon circle number 2 as well. Thank you. And so going on to the next slide. So in terms of the digital program for developing countries, so you can see here that there are 2 approaches on the top layer and the bottom layer. These are the approach. The bottom layer is this is in the telecommunication area. We have been collaborating already from the past, but in the area of environment, the network infrastructure and people development and cybersecurity. So best utilization of technology, we need to have an environment to enable us to utilize the technology. The overall at the top is the recent 2 years. This new division, which was newly incepted with a new team comprised, and I'm in charge of this team. There are various different sectors. And proactively, we are going to use digital technology to have a bigger and significant impact. So the next slide is one of the example is this waste management value chain. And in terms of what we have done is, as you can see, the generation of waste and how we dispose them. There are value chains. So issues and solutions are being mapped together through this process. And in the earlier session, the first step, second step, we talked about some steps involved. But this is the first step. The countries that are still working on the first stage, this is how, on the left, is a generation of waste, collecting and transporting them, and also separating them, recycling, and also disposal. There are 4 phases altogether. So in terms of the environment management group, this is a learning that we have achieved from them. So it's based on the rule and how the waste are going through this journey of being collected and separation. And there are recycling, plant collection, temporarily collection, and they are separated and also crushed, burned, and recycled. So these are the flows. And then at the end, it's going to be landfilled. So going on to the next slide. So each of the stages, what are the issues is plotted on this slide. So for instance, especially the first stage in terms of waste management, the issue was the generation of waste, especially developing countries in the city areas. Starting a project, we are going to measure or understand the volume of waste. And the tool to do so, we don't have them. So it's very labor intensive. So we open up the garbage from each household, what kind of how it weighs or what kind of garbage or waste. We sample them up and we accumulate in leading to a hypothesis. So it's costly and it's time consuming. So that's something that we have heard. And also each stage is the typical issue being mapped on this slide. So what kind of technology, as of now today, can we use and leverage is something that we have to think. Of course, this is something that we have done on the table exercise, but this is the next slide shaded in blue. So what could be considered as a solution set? These are the solution set. So for instance, the volume of waste at the time of generation, mobile app, you can take a photo and broadly, roughly, you will be able to understand the type of waste and we will be able to use that technology. And that's a potential. And that's the mapping of what technology fit into where. I will not go into each of the details, but you plot this, and then the next slide shows the fact that if you apply the solution, what kind of data could be generated? So further shown in darker blue. And when you map them together, this is how it would look. So the important thing here is that the next slide, at the top, as you can see, so each stage by stage, the data could be captured. It's of course a matter of course that they need to capture them on the silo, but you need to have an overall cross siloed view and cross-disciplinary view. Then you know where you be able to intervene for improvement, and you would find out the cause and the result relationship. So this is the slide showing that relationship. I'm sorry. So can you go on to the next slide? Because I already have explained this. So for instance, periodical rule-based waste generation in terms of collection and transportation of the waste. The data when the waste is generated, we will be able to get the information on timely manner. So we will be able to optimize the collection of garbage, or maybe the routes could be optimized in terms of collecting the waste. So it will also contribute to the collection rate. What are left without being collected, we will be also able to identify that. So that's something that we have considered. So the various integrated data management in terms of a very agile methodology or midterm or long-term perspective, we will be able to evaluate and improve by prioritizing what we need to do first. So I will need to accelerate. And so that being said, the overall holistic rules and strategies and six systems we call the EDPM, those strategic evaluation and improvement plan could also be considered by visualizing these elements altogether. And the next is a scenario, is a development scenario. How this could fit into the development scenario is an exercise to do that. So originally, in the area of environment, in the development scenario, the theory of change. So it's a steps of development impact as a flow, and environment management perspective. It's the colorful area, and the left-hand side is what I've shown you. Each of the garbage disposal value chain, what kind of solution or data could be acquired. Especially, this is the first step, as first stage. So we're mapping on first stage. And there are a lot of the data points where we could be able to gather data, and also area that's difficult to gather data. And in terms of the KPI for evaluation, we have a KPI to evaluate. Very top is the strengthening the capability of organization. This is something that could not be measured by digital, but let's say the waste collection service, the coverage ratio, or the collection ratio, the third from the top. This collection service, let's say if it does exceed 80%, let's say indices, then on the far right, D1, E1, E2, the original area of how digital could be managed and utilized. We have considered whether digital could contribute to this end. And this is going to be a little technical in nature, but digital architecture. I'd like to describe about the notion of digital architecture. So this is from the Cabinet Office. a Society 5.0 reference architecture. So I have extracted information from that. From the IT industry, this is how we think. And later on, in terms of the case of environmental management, I can reflect that to the specific case. But this framework, by applying this framework, there is a, on the right hand side, DX approach 1, 2, 3. It's easier to understand and map. So DX approach 1 is physical, something that you can see the flow of the waste, the car, trucks, and disposal facility is easier because it's visual. But the data behind it, how the data flow is happening, by utilizing this, you be able to get a better overall understanding. The number two is having the data. Let's say you can acquire the data. How are you going to scale that out to utilize the data? So let's say the value chain, if it's horizontal, or is it in a specific city, like Tokyo City, it's a data that you can acquire in a specific location. And then what about the other wards? If it's only a specific ward, you can think about the scaling out, and you can think about the cooperation or linkage of the data. So that's another framework. And last is digital utilization. The private company, of course, have technologies available. So the government institutions do not have to prepare that data. So what would the role of private and public sector respectively? This is a framework that easily maps this out, especially in the next page. I think this is more relevant when you see the next page. So this is a private and public alliances, how we see this. So data layer, data exchange, the data comprehensive interoperability is public. Public will take this area. It's an area that they would take the lead. And but the device and the service or application, it's more led by private sector by means of co-creation. So this is how we define the public area and the private area. And again, as I've described, the data, when you think about scalability of data, the other sectors is agricultural sector, health, and transportation. You see three cases, but it's the waste data and domestic household data. If you multiply that, what will be the tendency? So the various other disciplines data could be multiplied together, and there are some strategy that will emerge out of this data learning. Specifically, I think it's easier to see them. And I'm sorry, it's an eye chart, but on the left, you see the layers, and on the right, this is the 4 stages. And the very bottom is the network and asset layer. It's a device, in other words, and smartphone, let's say. And the center is data, and the top is a service. So these could be mapped together, so we know which is a missing piece. Which area would we be able to intervene and step in? We'll be able to understand the holistic picture. So let me speed up. So yes, and this is into mid to long term a collaboration with private sector. We need to consider what we can do together. So this is the exercise. But considering whether we could apply this to a certain country, and we're considering that aspect.
And last but not least, yes, next page, please. I'd like to show you some solution examples, like in a catalog form, one case per page. And I showed a map of the solutions. And so this shows the list of solutions in a catalog form, page by page. And I will not explain each and every item, but if you go to the final page, and this is the case which was actually utilized in JICA or by JICA. It's a famous case, so you may be aware of it. It's J-Prism Phase 2, where we used a drone to do a 3D modeling of the disposal site. to estimate when the disposal site will be filled up, that its life. So if you are considering engaging in some projects, I hope that you'll refer to this. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miyata-san. Now then, we would like to move on to Kitakyushu City, Mr. Arima-san. Arima-san, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Arima from Kitakyushu City. Today I'd like to present what we are doing. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you very much once again. So, as we discussed this morning, environment and health, especially environmental issues. When you have to balance two different problems, we need a positive cycle. So environment and economy should be balanced so that we can have positive impact. So let me talk about our experiences. In the beginning, I'd like to start with this topic. As you can see, this year marks the 60th anniversary. So if you are human, 60 years is not exactly young, but we need to continue to grow and achieve sustainable development. So we actually set up a phrase, Mirai Tsunagu Kitakyushu, connecting to the future, Kitakyushu, so that we can continue to prosper long into the future. Next Sunday, we're going to have the mayoral election. So there is a festive mood in Kitakyushu City. And our company, we have the president in the picture. And for the past 60 years, we only had 4 mayors, and we're going to have the 3 mayors, and we're going to have the 4th new mayor this coming Sunday. So that's next Sunday, this coming Sunday. There will be nationwide news. I would not be in Japan by that time, so somebody have to contact me and let me know who has become our new mayor. Let me introduce our city just briefly. We are located between Tokyo and Shanghai. I always use this map. Lower right-hand side, we have many manufacturers in Kitakyushu City, and we have 3 major scenic beauties, very famous in Japan. Since 1980, we developed railway roads. In 1901, Yahata Steel Works were established. This was then run by the government, and that let us become one of the growing cities in Japan, one out of the 4 major cities. We supported the high growth period of Japan. But we also had pollution, and citizens, businesses, and the government worked together to overcome this problem. Involving citizens is really the DNA of our city. All the city citizens are quite interested in environment. On the upper right-hand side, you see a graph there. We have economic development on x-axis, probably GDP, and vertically we have the environmental readiness. As you can see, we grew in economy, and at the same time, we were able to enhance the environmental conservation level. So we have been able to balance economy and environment successfully. So as I mentioned, we had a good balance between economy and environment. But in terms of technology, I think this is a good example. It's easy to understand. For one thing, 3 boxes from the left: cleanup production, energy saving, and cost reduction. To the right, we have cost reduction. We have dust collector and wastewater treatment. We were able to reduce the amount of pollutants thanks to the technologies that we have that has led to recycling and decarbonization. They are really the basic technology that we have been able to cultivate within both SMEs and large companies, because we had the many manufacturers located in our city. So how can we make economical viability from waste management? In 1980s, we were trying to establish circular economy. We established Eco-Town, as you can see there. We became the very first Eco-Town in Japan 25 years ago. So let me talk about our Eco-Town, because it's unique. We have household appliances, automotive, OA equipment are actually recycled by different service providers inside the Eco-Town. This is industrial park, where they are trying to reduce the amount of waste. Whatever that is generated from plant A will be utilized in plant B. In addition to that, our Eco-Town project, we have 4 important factors. On the left-hand side, as you can see, when companies are trying to promote recycling, we have to provide administrative one-stop services where we can provide appropriate advice. To the right, we have universities in the city. They are conducted in basic research and experiment, and depending on the stage of each company, they can provide instructions or advice. It is similar to DX of JICA. How can we segregate waste at low cost? That is something that is very much demanded. And thirdly, municipalities are responsible for managing waste. There are different ordinances, and we asked the national government to set up a border-based system covering whole prefecture, trying to treat waste as raw materials for industries. And number 4, this is our effort to improve risk communication. In Eco-Town, we have recycling companies, and they want to locate their company inside the Eco-Town. We have to have consent from the citizens. So we make sure they actually invite citizens to come on a tour before they are allowed to establish their plant. So actually, school kids will go on excursion to some of these recycling plants. So this, I think, has been quite useful to improve the social acceptance. Now, if you look at developing countries where economies are currently developing, there has been a demand for prospering recycling business. And this diagram shows a focus on the left-hand side. The side says is used items, the source of waste. Depending on the business that generate waste, we have to make sure there is sufficient volume, because we are going to collect the waste. So from where, how much we're going to collect, how, all of these questions are important. But more importantly, we need to look at the right-hand side. We have to make sure there will be stable users of the recycled products. Labeling and point system can be provided by the government to encourage people to be engaged in recycling. In our city, it's the economic department that carries out this point system or encouragement system. In developing countries, they may invest in capital. They can do more drastic measures than this. So the point here is that in order to make recycling business viable, we have to make sure recycled products are easily traded and transacted. Make sure there is sufficient volume, where that is going to be utilized as recycles. By encouraging that, you can actually generate new business, new industries. So these are the key points that you need to pay attention to in our city. Because of the COVID-19, there was a major challenge. We are trying to recycle used clothes. That's been actually recycled to make the interior materials for vehicles, but vehicle production stopped. Because of the COVID-19, we had to stop accepting the used clothes. As you can see, this is the whole end-to-end. So you have to make sure this goes on without stopping. So when we want to transport this to this, we set up the Asia Decarbonization Center. This has been renamed to Kitakyushu Asia Center for Carbon Neutrality. We have covered 87 cities in 16 countries, more than 200 projects. These are some of the major projects.
In Indonesia, this is compost, which is a little analog, but reducing the waste. And the volume of transport to the disposal area has been reduced and made into fertilizers. And in the bottom, you have the waste to energy. So not only facility in the box, but how the household is going to throw away their waste and how this could be transported. Listening to the presentation, maybe DX could be utilized in this area. As we have heard the earlier presentation, I think the transportation will be much be made efficient. So this is the area of water in Phnom Penh, tap water to make it drinkable. And also we have a technology which is patented utilizing microorganism in order to reduce the cost at the same time make and purify the water. And in the wastewater management, you also have a lot of projects that are ongoing. And this is from the environmental agency. And this is the case in Iskandar, and low carbon is the objective. But in the center, in the shaded purple area, we waste recycling. And the local large conglomerate, we have been working together. So the waste are going to be utilized for cement raw material. And that is a project that is ongoing right now. And decarbonization and climate actions in 2050. We are going to realize a decarbonized society. And last February, we have established a green growth strategy. And we have established this strategy, and not only our city alone, but overseas by 2050. We are going to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 150% from in 2050. So decarbonization, this business, there are several recent cases that I would like to highlight. In Vietnam, in Haiphong, last year, there is a industrial park, and it's a Katoba Island, which is the tourism spot, PV and also regenerative fuel cell. They have their own power generation. It's a zero emission model for the tourism location. And of course, introducing e-vehicle We are now pursuing on this effort on this end as well. And going on to the next slide, please. And in Thailand, Summit Island, we have a marine plastic. It is going to be converted into oil. And the waste, the hotel of the tourism island, we utilize for barbecue or fuel for excursion ferries with UNEP. We are working together on this for environmental issue and marine plastic. Say solving these two problems simultaneously is what we are aiming for. And Paral, on the left, it is some of the glass material for souvenir in the tourism spots from the waste. And with the PV and EV garbage or waste collection vehicles, we have DX applied. So normality detection and maintenance management, we're going to do that remotely. And we're now doing through the POC's proof of concept test. It's an island. So in terms of prolonging the natural resources and self-sufficiency of energy, we believe that we'll be able to contribute for Palau in that end. The next case, this is in the next door session. This is the foam fire extinguishing agent with resilience. Decarbonization is going to be achieved with resilience and anti-disaster. In the center is a firefighting technical training. In Kitakyushu City, as part of the JICA initiative, we have the training. But listening to this, JICA, it seems that this is the only initiative in Kitakyushu, our city. So we would like to thank you for your special privilege that you have given to us for this training. Thank you. And I have mentioned that we've changed the name, and some people criticize, what are you going to do by changing the name? And I have stopped and decided to go away from that without responding to the question. But in terms of collaboration with the private sector and collaboration with JICA, at the end, this is going to be further important. And in the future, in overseas development, the waste, zero emission, zero carbon is going to be added on top of that. So both ends, we're going to grow this business. So in terms of counterparty cities, and if possible, as a local government, our city also, we would like to, or we must grow, otherwise it's meaningless. So with that mindset, we are now engaging in this project. So for us, with JICA, we have concluded a alliance agreement. So in terms of high quality growth and development in promoting these activities, we are a local government, so it have to be reflected to the citizens of our city, and we need to cooperate on this partnership agreement. So we hope that in terms of JCCI initiative, we hope that we'll be able to contribute as much as we can. And the last slide. Yes, so this is the last slide. Today is an online seminar, and entities and enterprises that are in Kitakyushu, 3 companies are participating. Shabondama, Bubble Soap, and One World. And on the second, they are refining Aztec EDA, recycling precious metals. And for the marathon, it's a gold medal that was provided by collecting a smartphone. And I hope that you'll be able to support us. That will be all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arima. Now, the final presenter for the day will be made by Numazaki-san of Toyama City. So Numazaki-san, please. Hello. I am the Secretary-in-Chief of Toyama City's Environmental Policy Division. My name is Numazaki, and I'd like to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. Today, I would like to introduce Toyama's efforts under the title of International Cooperation in Toyama City, efforts to promote the SDGs. I look very much forward to making this presentation for you. So first of all, I would like to give an overview of Toyama City. Toyama City is located in the central part of Toyama Prefecture and is the prefectural capital with a population of approximately 410,000 people. The city boasts a diverse terrain rich in nature from the 1,000-meter deep Toyama Bay to the 3,000-meter high Tateyama mountain range, as well as thriving manufacturing industries such as pharmaceuticals and electronic components. Next, I'd like to introduce some of the city's major initiatives. First, I would like to introduce our city's compact city strategy, which forms the very foundation of our operation. The city's compact city strategy is to form compact living areas by concentrating urban functions such as residences, commerce, business, and culture in the land along the railways and other public transportation systems in order to achieve the revitalization of these systems and businesses. This strategy also aims to reduce administrative costs associated with water, sewage, road management, and others, and to achieve sustainable urban management. This is always explained as a skewers and dumplings image based on the shape of the city area in our compact city strategy. However, I think this analogy may be a bit difficult for foreign people to understand, so it may be easier to understand if you replace the skewer with barbecue stick and dumplings for food such as meat that's skewered onto the barbecue stick. So here the skewer or the stick refers to the public transportation modes that maintains a certain level of service, and the dumplings or meat refers to the walking or living area of the citizens connected by the skewers. Next, I'd like to introduce the city's plan to promote the SDGs. Up to now, the city has been promoting various initiatives related to environmental model cities and environmental future cities based on the compact city strategy. Under such circumstances, in 2018, our city was selected as an SDGs future city by the Cabinet Office. The main concept of our city's SDGs future city, especially in the SDGs model project, is deepening the compact city by integrating LRT networks and autonomous decentralized energy management. The purpose of this project is to strengthen efforts to build a compact city by integrating the existing LRT and other public transportation revitalization efforts with the autonomous and decentralized energy management approach that allows energy to be generated and consumed at the local level. Next, please. The city has implemented various initiatives since the SDGs Future City Plan was formulated in 2018. Then, from the perspective of SDGs, we formulated the second SDGs Future City Plan in 2021 to further deepen the efforts of the environmental model cities and environmental future cities. As mentioned, the second SDGs Future City Plan has the 3 action policies. The city's international collaboration efforts fall under the 5th of these 5 policies, cities and regions. And in order to embody these efforts, the city will utilize its international network to develop Toyama City's compact city strategy to provide overseas cities and regions, mainly in Southeast Asia, with a package of technologies and expertise related to decarbonization possessed by companies in the city. Toward the realization of the SDGs, the city will support local community development, quality of life, and problem solving through international collaboration efforts. Next, please. Next, I'd like to introduce the city-to-city cooperation in our international development projects. This is an image of our city's international collaboration efforts. Together with companies in the city, we will share our knowledge of decarbonization technologies and other SDGs initiatives with Southeast Asia, such as Indonesia and Malaysia, South Asia, such as the Maldives, and South America, such as Chile. Now, from the next page, we'd like to introduce 3 specific cases in Indonesia and two from Malaysia. This is the case of Tabanan province in Bali, Indonesia. The local community is facing challenges such as electricity shortage, declining agriculture, and waste disposal. On the other hand, the city had local characteristics and technologies that could improve these issues. And against this backdrop, in March 2014, the city and Tabana province signed a cooperation agreement on the implementation of small hydropower and agriculture technology projects. And while the waste and agriculture technologies projects are currently suspended, in November 2017, 4 small hydropower systems utilizing agricultural water and LED lights lit by clean electricity were installed. And this had a very positive effect, making it easier to move around at night, increasing the amount of time available for agriculture activities. And the project was implemented by JICA.
Now, this is the case of Kelangkan province, Bali. Again, there has been a shortage of electricity, degrading agriculture. Similar problems are faced by Kelangkan province. Paddy fields are located on higher ground and river runs lower places. As a result, only about 1/6 of the water needed for the entire paddy field can be drawn. So we went to the site for the company in our city that has excellent irrigation technology. After a site survey, the company installed irrigation pumps and solar panels to power the pumps, which were put into operation in January 2020. But you may not be able to see, as you can see, water is flowing vigorously in high volume. This has been funded by the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and implemented in cooperation with local Udayana University. This is the case from Semarang City, Indonesia. Semarang City has they had needs such as revitalization of public transportation, realization of low carbon society. There's a company in Toyama City that has the technology to compress natural gas, which is a cleaner energy than diesel, the main fuel used in local buses. The city has expertise in revitalizing public transportation as well. Against this backdrop, in 2017, the 2 cities signed a cooperation agreement to conduct a feasibility study together with a company in the Toyama City to promote the low-carbon development of Semarang. In January 2019, together with a company in our city, we implemented a project to convert 72 diesel buses into hybrid buses that can also run on natural gas. This hybrid engine bus can reduce CO2 emission by up to 40%. If this technology becomes more widespread, it will contribute to a significant reduction in CO2 emissions. This project was funded by a subsidy from the Ministry of the Environment. Next, this is a case study in the Iskandar Development Region in Malaysia. In Malaysia's Iskandar Development Region is growing rapidly. It has attracted international attention. In 2015, Toyama City and Iskandar signed a cooperation agreement on renewable energy and transportation revitalization, and to promote environmental education in the region. the company in Toyama installed a small hydroelectric power generation facility in February 2018. This is the last case study I will introduce today. I will share information on future development in Malaysia, Kota Kinabalu, that is facing issues of electricity shortage. In 2015, the Toyama City and Kota Kinabalu signed a cooperation agreement on renewable energy and agricultural technology based on the results of our research. Up to today, we have come up with a project proposal to revitalize the community through ecotourism by installing micro hydroelectric power generation equipment in the river that runs through the village of Kobuni near Kota Kinabalu City, with the aim of running the community on clean electricity. This slide shows the significance of the city's international collaboration. We believe there are 4 aspects to our international collaboration projects. First, as a government, our city should play the role of SDG future city, so we can share various knowledge to other foreign cities and regions. And from the local economy aspect, companies in Toyama City can expect to expand their overseas business and create new jobs, which in turn will generate more tax revenue in the long run. From the perspective of citizens' awareness, Toyama City can promote a partner city. Sometimes at international conferences like this, we are recognized for what we did. We focus on civic pride in our city. This is a major keyword that will lead to an increased awareness of inviting people to come to live and settle in Toyama, especially among young people and students who wish to pursue international careers. And finally, on the environmental front, we believe that our efforts will contribute to the reduction of CO2 emissions and realization of a decarbonized society. These series of efforts have been highly evaluated, and our city was awarded a letter of appreciation from the Indonesian government. Finally, I would like to briefly introduce a waste treatment project by Ishibashi Corporation, a company in Toyama City, which has been adopted by JICA. This is a screw-type machine called RACS, which produces compost by fermenting, decomposing, and reducing the volume of food waste or kitchen waste. This is no wastewater coming from RACS, very little odor. Because of its automatic operation, it does not require advanced techniques or know-how, so it can be operated by a single person. We are planning to install this facility in Badung province in Bali of Indonesia. We are currently proceeding with the contract procedures. So if everything goes well, we'll be able to complete this by next fiscal year. I mentioned there is a little water because of the aerobic fermentation. Aerobic fermentation is really the action of microorganisms that works in the presence of air to decompose smelly organic matter and reduce foul odors. The slide shows the mechanism of aerobic fermentation. The air will be blown from the floor, and according to the World Bank report, the composition of general waste, solid waste in Indonesia, excluding industrial waste, is more than 60%. It's really food waste, especially in rural area. Decomposition, this ratio rise up to 75%. RACS is characterized by the fact that it can actually decompose food waste even though it's wrapped in a plastic bag. The waste the waste is sorted through a sieve in the final composting process, disposed of at the final disposal site. We believe that this technology is very effective in Indonesia, where the waste problem is very serious. The city of Toyama would like to support companies in Toyama that possess this technology by communicating with the local government and sharing know-how on waste sorting. This concludes our experiences, introduction of Toyama City to international cooperation experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Numazaki-san. Now then, we would like to start the Q&A session. But Miyata-san from JICA, her presentation, I think she had to skip a lot of pages, so she can make some supplementary comments. Are you ready for that? If you'd like to cover the details. Well, earlier, the section on solutions I had to skip because of the lack of time. So I would like to share with you just a few of the most interesting and solutions just for your entertainment. So please tell us if you are interested. Japan's first solutions, which are very interesting. I'm sure you may be more informed than me, but this will be page 50 in the slides. Pelikas, do you know about this? It's a application. Oh, sorry, this is not page 50. This is 6. This is an application that that can be participated in by residents. Maybe 2 slides before this. Sorry to keep you waiting. 31, I think. So please go to 31. Yes, this is it. Thank you. And this solution is, well, residents in various parts of the city, when they find illegally dumped waste, they can take photos of the illegally dumped waste and then report it to the authorities. And the users can communicate, share that information, and can respond to those uploaded information. And so the user has expanded to more than 100 countries, and more than 200 million pieces of illegally dumped waste have been gathered. And it's like SNS, that is, many people are uploading information on illegally dumped waste, and that will become an incentive for people to pick up or collect illegally dumped waste. And this started in Japan, but this application is actually very interesting in that it's being utilized around the world. Also, I've included solutions from many countries. And I talked about the drone aerial photography using drones, and that technology is also being utilized quite frequently. Also, to optimize the garbage collection route. This is another Japanese solution. This is page 37. Yes. And this is, the provider is Odakyu, but I'm sure there are several similar applications available, and maybe some local governments may be utilizing this application or these applications. And I think in the context of developing countries, because they already utilize a lot of mobile phones or cellular phones, I think if you have to introduce some new facility, then that could cause maintenance issues and problems. However, if it's a smartphone application, then I think the majority of people, at least in the cities, have smartphones, and also, data connectivity is very good in the cities. So I think this is another application that could be utilized in developing countries. I hope you will look through my slides and find some interesting solutions. And I'm ready to entertain any questions. As I said, I talked about taking photos of the dumped waste and then analyze the composition of the waste. And this uses the LiDAR-based sensoring technology for analysis, but the accuracy is not up to the level that we desire. So that's one challenge, I believe. And this solution, I think, was included in the package. I think it's probably a little earlier than this one. Page 27. So I'm sorry for taking your time. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope that this could be valuable information for your reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miyata. Thank you very much for giving us detailed explanation. Now we would like to move on to Q&A. As far as introduced, Miyata, Mr. Arima, and Mr. Nomazaki, I'd like to ask you to come back onto the stage. Thank you once again. We have already received some questions. Ms. Miyata from JICA and Mr. Arima of Kitakyushu and Mr. Namazaki from Time City, we have each question. To Ms. Miyata from JICA, in terms of technical cooperation project, when you run this project, when there is a proposal to use DX from your counterpart, is it possible for us to consult with DX department of JICA? Yes, of course, it's possible. Having said that, there is a specific department that runs the project. So you need to involve that relevant department when you consult. We have multiple departments. Our department is global environment, and other areas too, we have different project. Our department is really across the field, so you can come to us anytime. Thank you.
Next, a question to Arita-san from Kitakyushu. Arima-san. So I heard your cases of deploying the city companies' technologies to overseas countries. And when they enter developing countries, do you have some know-how at Kitakyushu on how to deploy their technologies in these developing countries and how they can adjust their technologies there? Thank you for that question. My impression is that not many were very successful, but I can't share with you failure cases. And I know that there were cases in which there were some problems, and of course, many cases which took a long time. But one thing I can say is that the cities that I introduced in my presentation, be it Slavaya or Davao, well, we have a sister city relationship or other agreements with the local governments. And so I think it's important that the government agencies have good communication with one another, and then that would create a conducive environment for business to business collaboration. So that's one factor. And one challenge is that I've actually heard from the local government workers, but of course, the systems and the environmental standards differ according to the city or the country. So before going to the feasibility study phase, if you could gather more information, then maybe the project would have run more smoothly. And so if you utilize JICA's information before you enter the feasibility study, then you may not have had to go through such very hard work, such as feasibility study or communication. So that's, I think, one point.
I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Numazaki of Toyama City. Toyama City and the businesses in Toyama City, you were successful overseas. How do citizens respond to that? Do you think increasing number of internal companies want to go abroad because of the past success? Thank you for that question. In the city of Toyama, we have different degrees of mixed reactions from local businesses. One reason is because of the COVID-19, we were not able to do as much as we wanted to, but there are companies who are interested in introducing technologies to developing countries. Those who were interested before COVID are still interested. And from the beginning of this year, because of the lifted travel restrictions, because we've had some success in the past, I believe more companies will be interested. But I have to say there has been a negative influence because of the COVID-19. Thank you.
We have received some questions online. I'll read out the question. With the JOVC, I am dispatched abroad through the JOVC. For each of the presentations, for example, the proportion of raw waste in Japan, such to what extent has that technology been proliferated in Japan? Or if there are some technologies you want to re-import into Japan, please let us know, especially in technology, for example, hybrid cars or compost cars. And for these technologies, what are some of the good potential technologies that you want to reintroduce from overseas into Japan? Should I pose that question to all of you, maybe? So starting with Miyata-san from JICA. Yes, thank you. I think depending on the solution and the case study, I think there may be some variation. But when you look at the country, there are many technologies which are deployed in cities in developed countries or industrialized countries. So I don't know to what extent such technologies are deployed in cities in Japan. I'm sorry, we haven't done that study yet.
Well, I introduced some of the environmental technologies that we have. You can actually generate power utilizing waste, making it into compost. So we have brought those technologies from our city to abroad. And we have already established waste management technology. The utilization is already 100%. So if we are successful in demonstration, unless otherwise it's very difficult to bring it out onto other countries because we could not be responsible. The technologies that we want to import technologies that people talked about, as far as I know, there is a technology to create urea from hair or lactic acid from hair or PET bottles. Can be used PET bottle can be bought at 5 cents. Maybe this is the more advanced plastic waste management, better than the ones that we have.
Yes. In deploying our technologies abroad, in recent, we will base our technologies on those which have successful cases in Japan. For example, small hydropower. We first tried it in Toyama, and in order to plan for the deployment, Toyama City led the initiative to construct its first small hydropower generation plant, and also RACS, the technology I explained earlier, that is for composting technology. So based on success cases in Japan, we are currently trying to export it overseas. As for re-importing from developing countries, I'm sorry, I don't have much knowledge on that fact. I'm sorry, I don't have any cases I can share with you. But as for the way forward, we would like to base our activities on technologies which were successful here in Japan. Thank you.
There is one more question to cities of Kitakyushu and Toyama. As we recover from COVID-19, if you look at future international cooperation and your support to your local businesses, are you going to change anything in the support that you have been providing in this phase of recovery? So starting with Mr. Arima from Kitakyushu, please. About this question, I'd like to know the answer. Half jokingly, I'm just saying this, but for the past 3 years, we were not able to travel as freely as we used to. And as Ms. Miyata said, we have been introducing digital technology. Digital transformation has progressed. In our daily work, we utilize online technology, and we're going to do so more. And when you look at the environmental measures will have to include digital technologies. Eventually, there will be more demand for including the digital technology into our environmental projects. So as we try to plan for a better project, although I'm not an expert, I'm not good at digitalization. Yes, I believe that there will be a change in the way we provide support.
Yamazaki-san, yes. Toyama City currently has several international projects, which is the city-to-city collaboration project by the Environment Ministry. We have 4 projects actually currently underway, and we would like to focus on these 4 projects and continue to make efforts, and whether we can expand from these 4 is a question, because I think we're up to our neck with these 4 cases. But if the Toyama City companies or some counterparty countries make some proposals or come up with proposals, then maybe it's worth consideration. So that could be a different issue. So we heard some very interesting cases using DX from JICA today. And so whether Toyama City, we're currently studying whether we can incorporate these modern technologies into our activities at Toyama. So I listened to her presentation with interest. And so we will continue to demonstrate various technologies, and then try to utilize and leverage these technologies in our international activities. There was mention of DX. Miyata-san?
So do you think there will be a change the way we carry out international cooperation? Yes, I'd like to be part of that change, because we just heard very encouraging comments from both cities. In Japan, we have not been able to utilize the digital technologies fully, but we are asked to introduce digital technologies locally abroad in Malaysia, Indonesia. We heard case studies there. Depending on the type of solution or the area, they have more knowledge. They can make proposals or recommendation as to what we can be possibly utilized. So we really have to work together. There are technologies Japanese companies are good at, their strengths. We are trying to accommodate the needs of the local community, but we will be once again working together. Digital applications are not always the big goal. There are always low-hanging applications, and there are areas where local partners are better at their strengths to be utilized. So by working together, we will be able to create new services. I think that spirit is something that we would like to see more in the future.
Thank you very much. I think that is actually what is JCCI is aiming for. We have several other questions. A question from Thailand online. Thanks to all the presentations. And from the successful cases in many countries, I learned a lot, and I was able to gain a lot of information. And JICA and JICA's experts, the local government officials, and you have been engaged in wonderful activities to reduce greenhouse gases from climate change. And in Thailand, we need some financial assistance for mitigation efforts, so green finance. And of course, you give us, we would like to learn more details about the institutionalization of these systems. So we had questions like that, but since it is time, we would like to close the Q&A session now. So thank you to all of the speakers in this session today. Could you give them a round of applause, please? Thank you.